this is Stacia, and I wanted to show this game, which is my third game, actually round four, of the Schwartzenegger Open. This was played on March 4th of 2018, and I played the black pieces against Rishik Lingam, rated 1476, and I was rated 1572. My opponent was a young Indian boy. I want to say maybe like 11 years old or something like that. And well, I was happy right from the start because he played e4 and I got to play my favorite, d5, the Scandinavian. Um, it's funny to watch how opponents respond to this. Some people look worried, some people look happy. This opponent did not hesitate and took the pawn instantly. So I took back. He played knight c3, which is the main line. I played queen e5, d4, knight f6, knight f3, and now c6, with the idea if they bring the bishop here, I now have an escape square for my queen that's going to be useful in almost all lines. And now he played bishop d3. So this is a rare move, but I have seen it. I actually think bishop c4 is more precise because it puts pressure on e6. And a lot of times white will bring their rook or their queen to this file, and there can be sacrifices on e6. So that's definitely, okay. Sorry, I forgot to turn my messages off for the video, but that's okay, we'll continue. All right, but he chose this move, which, okay, I do want to play bishop f5, and I actually still can because the queen is defending that square, but I feel like the queen's misplaced on f5, so I went with the move bishop g4. And although I didn't know at the time, this is the theory line, the theoretical line. So I'm happy with that. He played h3, whoops. And we moved our pieces backwards and no, I'm just kidding. Let's try this again. Bishop g4, h3, and now I pull back, maintaining the pin. Although I have to say, this actually encourages white to play g4 and then castle queenside. But my opponent chose bishop d2. Okay, so now he's threatening discoveries. And sometimes I allow these discoveries, and the knight may hop to e4, and then takes, and g takes f6, and I'll get a pawn structure like this. But I don't allow that unless I have to. And in this case, since my opponent spent some time playing h3 and also not putting his bishop on c4, I actually have time to retreat here. So I usually go to c7, but I noticed something interesting, and that's if I go queen b6 in this position, I actually kind of tickle, as they say, a couple pawns of his. Notice this pawn is hanging, although I don't think I would take that one just due to rook b1 and my pawn's hanging. But the d pawn actually is hanging, so pretty interesting. He covered this with rook b1, which I guess is fine, although I think he should just castle because I'm not going to take this. And here I thought for a while because now I can take this d pawn. But so the decision I was facing was, is it worth it for me to take this pawn? Because in the Scandi, you're already behind in development. So this is a pretty risky operation. And I did decide to go for it. I'm giving up the two bishops as well. But this does make the game interesting, I'll say that. So queen takes d4. And now computer says he should continue with knight e4. And this is going to make me a bit uncomfortable. Instead, he played bishop b3, just a tempo move. So tempo move on the queen, and I had to decide between d6 and d8. I hate to put the queen on d8, but really my end square that I want is c7, so it doesn't matter too much. Okay, so queen d8, he castled, which I think is excellent. I mean, white should just finish his development and make threats at this point, and maybe win the pawn back that way, or maybe cause me real problems. Okay, e6, so I'm going to really try to develop now, and that just claim I'm up a pawn. He played rook b to d1. Yeah, and here he's threatening this discovery with the bishop, so taking the pawn on h7. Although I think that would actually be okay for me to trade his d pawn for my h pawn and open the file for my rook. I would still think I'm slightly better if this were to occur. But okay, bishop d6. This stops the discoveries and develops a piece. And now bishop g5. And then suddenly I was like, maybe my bishop belongs on e7. But if I play bishop e7 now, pretty sure he can take. Yeah, and I lose this pawn. So I admit I played this game a bit greedy, but I was looking for a win here. I got a loss the first round and a draw the second round when I was up a pawn. So I really was out for blood this game. And okay. So what's the computer say in this position? Oh, that's right. So bishop e7 is actually playable, but the computer likes to move bishop e5 here. Interesting idea. Just defending the knight, allowing the pawn to be taken. Now we'll move the queen. It actually likes it on a5. And after the bishop takes, we can take this way. And it says black is just fine and potentially slightly better. But okay. I decided to play, again, I should be developing, but I played h6. What's my idea? Well, now there's no bishop takes h7, and it's a tempo move on the bishop. Now the bishop really should drop back, and this is what I expected, maintaining the pin, and black still has some problems to navigate. But my opponent decided to take here. I definitely think that was weak, just to give up the two bishops. He is going to double my pawns, but okay, in this position, I'm actually still happy because I'm up a pawn. This is a structure I'm used to, and I think black's slightly better here still, just due to the extra pawn, even though it is a double pawn. All right, he goes bishop c4, and now this unleashes the discovery. I sidestep that, and now he actually has a couple good plans here. And these are moves I didn't see either. He plays rook d2 in this position, just getting ready to double. But it turns out that I'm just in time for this to not be a worry for me. Instead, he should go f4, developing his rook that way, and with f5 in mind. Or he could go b4, going for a b5 break. But okay, he doubled, and so yeah, I'm just looking to play knight d7 and castle. So knight d7, rook here. Now he's threatening to take the knight, but I got to play the move I definitely wanted to play, castle queenside. And yeah, I think I'm just up a pawn now. Yeah, it's a double pawn, but I was feeling good about this position. One other thing that I want to note about this position is I was thinking about if I want trades to happen or not. And one thing I became aware of was that we have opposite color bishops. So with that in mind, I kind of thought I should make sure that when trading that we don't end up in an opposite color bishop endgame, because if we do, I don't think this pawn would be enough to win. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, and he played b4 here. So going for b5, definitely a bit annoying. I played knight e5, tempo move on the bishop. He dropped back. And now I decided to exchange one pair of rooks. Mainly because, well, he owns the d file right now. But I think after this trade and rook g8, I'm doing okay. And I'm proud of myself because I have a history of just blindly trading off pieces. But rook g8 is actually a better move in my opinion because we're setting up this threat. So if knight f3 check, I would win the rook. My opponent did see this, however, so in that case, rook g8 is actually a tempo move because he has to move his king. And now f5, keeping the knight out. Okay, so the knight needs to reroute. And yeah, I like this this route he found. The knight can go to f4 and then come into my position this way. So I don't want that to happen. Not only that, but knight f4 has a threat. And let me know if you see it. Okay, I go bishop b6. Yeah, knight f4. And hopefully you saw that there's actually tactics on my e6 pawn because the bishop's hitting it as well. And, you know, if knight takes pawn, pawn takes, it would be bishop takes check, forking my king and rook. So definitely something to be aware of. And I have to be honest with you, I was aware of this later, I think, not right away. And I actually play a move to sidestep that threat, but not on purpose. Okay, so I played rook g5. This avoids the tactic on e6, and it also defends against the knight coming into my position. So I actually was proud of this move, even though the computer doesn't love it or anything. But I think black's doing good here. Computer says minus 0.8. Yeah, I was thinking, I kind of think of a double pawn as being worth half a pawn, unless I can get it straightened out or trade it off or something. So I do feel like black's slightly better still. And now king e2, just bringing his king in, and knight d7. And now I have an idea for my knight. I want to put my knight on f6 and get to e4. And I thought my knight would be awesome here. And yes, the pawn can kick me off, but I think I could just come back to f6 and then come back into maybe the square. All right, and I was hoping to see this as well. I wanted to provoke this move, h4. I forget why now. Oh, I wanted this square for my knight potentially, or for my pieces. Okay, rook g4, attacking both, but he most likely saw g3 was a good response, defending both pieces. And now knight f6, proceeding with my plan to improve my knight. Okay. I think I have a threat here. Yeah, like let's say white does nothing. Do you see my threat? Let's say he just plays a3. I can actually come into e4 now, and I'm forking the pawn and the rook. Don't forget that my bishop's over here, attacking that. So in order to defend against that, he played rook d3. So now there is no fork. And I feel really happy about this next move. It's the move knight e4. Now, at first glance, it looks like a blunder because white could play f3 and fork my knight and rook. But I actually managed to see one step further, and I thought after f3, knight takes g3 check, and this king cannot defend the knight. So notice my bishop has the dark squares. So he would have to just step back or something like that, and I would win the knight, and this would just win outright. So knight e4 is definitely playable and pretty strong. On top of that, I am attacking f2 right now. And yeah, if he can't play f3, it's a little more difficult for white. I think he does have this move though. This move, rook f3, is something I was a little worried about, and my opponent didn't play it. He does something very interesting. He plays knight takes e6. So remember this tactic? Yeah. So I cannot take the knight, clearly, because if takes, bishop takes check, and I guess move the king, takes, and I guess I still have this move, and we'll end up in something like this. I have two minor pieces against a rook, so potentially white's slightly better here, although I'd rather be black with the two pieces versus one. But okay, the game's still gonna go, it's unclear. Well, after thinking for a while, I was really happy I came up with this move. Knight takes f2, and this wins on the spot for black. I'm attacking the rook. Notice he cannot take the knight, it is defended by the bishop. And the main point is that now it was a clearance for rook e6 check. So he's in trouble. He played rook f3, but now, or I'm sorry, did I say rook e6 check? Rook e4 check. And this is just bad news. So he can't do too much here. He goes to f1, but now I just take the knight. There is no bishop takes e6 anymore. And I don't totally understand this move. If I was white, I think I would keep my rook on the board, but he decides this, and the computer likes this move actually. Rook takes f2. There must be some threats that black has that might even be a mating net actually. Okay, but let's see. He takes. I take. He takes. Yeah, and this is just totally winning for black. So I was really happy with how this went down, and I'll just show the rest of the moves. My plan now is just to get my king up as far as possible, stop this pawn from proceeding. I want to keep my pawns on dark squares if I can as well. But first things first, get the king up. He drops a pawn there. That's fine by me. Yeah, and I played rook c2, and I have to say, my opponent did something funny. Like in this position, or maybe one move earlier, he just like sat there looking at his scorecard and just staring off into space for like 15 or 20 minutes. I got the feeling that he was trying to irritate me because this is clearly just lost. You know, I just have way too many pawns, plus a rook versus a bishop. It's completely lost. I don't see any tricks at all. And then he offered me a draw. And yeah, I just thought it was a little bit unsportsmanlike the way he was treating this. And then he resigned. So yeah, nice win for me. This is my only win of this tournament. I ended up with an even score against mostly lower rated opposition. So not the best result for me, but still, these slow tournaments are excellent practice for an improving player like myself. You get to think really deeply about the positions, and of course, I love analyzing these and learning new ideas. I do feel a little bit lucky. Sometimes that's how it goes. Sometimes you win because your opponent blunders, and this knight takes f6, or knight takes e6 move was a blunder. He just missed this knight takes f2 idea, which wins on the spot. So, yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.